Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back, everybody. There is a word that has been circulating for, I want to say, about a year now. It got even more popular, and not really sure why, but it definitely can be a game changer in your life, your relationships. And I'm talking about authenticity, being authentic, being the real you. How do you do that? How do you know you're actually being authentic? And how can you cultivate relationships with authenticity? We're going to talk about that today. And she helps people with personal and professional coaching and counseling, bringing on abundance, success, wellness in your life. And she's been doing this for a long time. I am gratified to have her here and learn about this whole thing about authenticity, of which I do detect that she is. Dr. Joanne White joins us on the program. How are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Thanks for being here
No,
because
my pleasure. I just want to say if I'm floating in space, that's still the authentic me.
yes, we have a Zoom background situation where occasionally you look like you're floating a little bit. But you know what? Maybe that's a state of mind. Maybe that floating is your just
I
you've
need to be
elevated.
right.
You've leveled up. Uh, so I remember in my journey hearing this word actually for the first time almost 5 years ago.
Really.
And I remember who said it to me, and it stuck with me. Didn't really mean a lot to me. It was, and the context of it was an authentic relationship, an authentic relationship. And to me, met on face value means just real. Somebody's being real. It's the real deal. I didn't get it. I wasn't able to apply it to myself until I did some work. Call it shadow work, whatever you want to phrase it. But I feel that I've gotten more authentic in terms of who I am. But that's just my mind. I don't know. How do you define authenticity and being authentic?
Well, first, you said it a little bit before. It's about accessing and being the real you, or that being authentic is about being the author of your life, being the authority of your life, and looking at what masks we have on, what we've done in terms of embracing other people's views of ourselves. You really have to dig deep to look at that sometimes. And I know that years ago when I was younger, people told me I wasn't going to be able to make it. I've told you this a little bit before because of my mirror writing. And
Mm,
when we take on those myths, okay, and
mm,
from other people or
mm,
ourselves, we don't really look at who we are. We don't really see our true selves. So we have to rip away the masks. We have to rip away, really take away the myths and look at who we are in our hearts, in our centers, in our souls. And it is about some soul searching. When you find that, it's about not necessarily your profession, whether or what you do in terms of being a mom, a dad, a teacher, whatever it is. It's about really looking at the core of who you are. And
mm,
that relates very much to our values. Oftentimes when people are at work and their values are very different from the organization or the company that they're working for, they don't feel good. And there may be a lot of absenteeism because they're not aligning with their true values. So it's also about taking a look at what our values are. Now, it's interesting because it took courage for me, Steve, to finally share about my mirror writing and because I felt like there was something wrong with me, and that's what I was told. And then I thought, well, if I could share this, I can help other people who may feel diminished or that devalued because of what other people have put on them in terms of how they can be, whatever. And it's so that was important to kind of be able to start writing about it, to start talking about it, and to recognize that, okay, so my brain works differently. Fine. But that doesn't limit me And what other people tell you about who you are or what they think you are doesn't have to limit you either. When we get to that core of who we are, there's so much peace,
Mm,
there's so much joy because it's like we have found ourselves. I don't know how to describe it except I mean I do, but it's such a really wonderful feeling to just say, this is me
yep.
with all my flaws, with all my imperfections, with all my but this is who I am. Now, you mentioned something interesting about relationships because how we present ourselves to other people is also very important. And that's why I said it was time for me to do that. Now, I have a story. Years ago, I was an executive director of this wonderful children and youth services, and then things changed in the company and the organization, and I felt that my creativity wasn't being utilized,
Mm,
and I needed to move on. And I remember when I was an adjunct at Temple University, and I remember seeing a sign. It was about some alcoholic beverage, but nevertheless, it was a sign that said, "Do what you love, the rest will follow." And every time I would go teach in the evening, I'd see that my eyes would tear up, and I thought, there's something in my heart, there's something within me that's calling to me, and that's why I started to do a lot of alternative methodology, learnings, getting certifications, and going into working for myself. So, but it's interesting because I didn't tell my family for a while. I thought, oh, they're gonna like, and they did. When I told them after I gave in my resignation 2 months later, I told them because I had to give at least 2 months. I said that I'm no longer working there. Well, can't you change your mind? Can't you?
oh,
No, it's too late. It's just too late. And here I am, never
wow.
looking back.
Uh, I gotta tell you, Joanne, this has been an eye opener. No, seriously, seriously, because I never realized that when we're not being our authentic self, it can be because of the limiting beliefs.
Yeah,
I never looked at it that way. I just looked at it as you're not being, and I'm in a men's group. We do leadership, community service, but also we get real. And if you have issues or whatever, and one of our values, and there's about six of them, is mask down. Be real, who
right.
you are. Don't put on a front. So I viewed the authenticity as it just not being tapping your inner core. I didn't see it as the limiting beliefs are potentially preventing you from being who you really are. But as soon as you said it, I'm like, oh, yes, no, I get it now. Now I understand it. And then as I said in the beginning, sharing my journey, um, doing the work on yourself, the shadow work, as they call it, addressing your inner child. That is the limiting beliefs that now I see gets in the way of being authentic. Wow.
And we need to do that, and sometimes those limiting beliefs that other people have put upon us, we take on as our own truths, which is
Yeah.
about being able to rip off the mask and really look deeply inside of us and say, what's our passion? What do we love? What are we good at? What's important to us in our lives? What do we believe? And when we start ripping all that other stuff
Yeah.
away, we find, like you said, that I love that word, our core, that really what makes us resonate with who we are and make us feel good about ourselves. And it's interesting because I work a lot with the inner child. And so often in a lot of the sessions that I do, people who've been told you're not good enough or something's wrong with you or comparing you to your sister or your brother or not valuing what you do. Like somebody years ago said, no matter what grade she got, her dad always said, well, you needed to be better. So she always thought that she was not good enough.
Mm,
So when we work with the inner child, and it's beautiful. It's about really letting that inner child know that whoever they are, whatever, they're good enough, and that they're loved just for the essence of who they are, not for what somebody said or not for what they do or they don't do, just for what's inside of them, their core. And
mm,
it's amazing to see how people can shift and transform just by looking at that part of themselves. And it doesn't mean necessarily the little child. I worked with somebody the other day. We worked with their teenager and we worked with their 12, so it's all the different stages and ages where we've taken on other people's perceptions, beliefs, and also our own. I mean, whatever that reason is, sometimes somebody will look in the mirror and say, well, I'm ugly compared to, and they're doing the
mm,
comparison. Nobody else is, right? Or I'm not good enough because she's always getting great grades and I'm just barely making it through. But
mm.
owning ourselves, deciding that what anybody else says is inconsequential to what I believe about myself. And if I have limiting thoughts about myself, I got to change them because they're not really true. And that doesn't mean that we don't make mistakes and we don't have stuff about us that isn't perfect. You and I have talked about perfection and the lack of it, which is, it doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
But it's about just accessing who we are and loving ourselves despite that. You know how hard that is for a lot of people?
Oh my gosh. I challenge everyone. Look in the mirror, nobody around, and tell yourself that you love you. Just look in the mirror and say, I love you. You're amazing. I love you. Many of us can't do it.
I know. And a lot of us say, well, why? What do I love about myself? What have I done? What have I proven? Now, wait a minute. And when you really look at your authentic self, it's not about what you've done or what you've had to prove. It's about looking inside your soul. What if your soul was talking to you?
Hmm.
One time when we are going to go on, let's do something deeper where we really look at some of that stuff because I think it's really an eye opener to have your inner guidance speak to you and
Yeah.
share with you.
You said something, it was like you were reading my mind a moment ago. And I wanted to bring the spotlight on this one aspect of being authentic. When you, this is my belief because I've walked the journey and the authentic thing, I'm there. Every once in a while, am I really, being me depends on the person and all that. I think that's normal.
Yeah.
However, when you are close to your authentic self, you don't look at those negatives the way you did. For example, you might look in the mirror and say, "Oh my gosh, what is that? Oh man, really?" And it might go on for, and it could go on for like a day. You're like, "Oh, I feel like garbage. I look horrible. What is going on?" When you find your authentic self, you may still do that. You're like, "What is that? I don't really care." You just walk away from it. And yes, there's certain things that you want to improve. Maybe you want to lose some weight for health reasons, maybe just to feel good as well. But you don't sit in that like you used to.
It's you don't have that same level of judgment.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at my skin earlier today. I said, "Oh, wow." But okay, onward. Again, I can't be perfect, and that's okay. But we have to really dig into who we are, and it does take some work. And some of it can be uncomfortable, being able to rip away what we've thought we are or what other people have told us, and really decide that what we are is okay or more than okay. And that takes work, and a lot of people don't like to do the work, but believe me, it's worth it. You've
Oh,
done it, I've done it. It may feel uncomfortable, like, why do I have to look at that? Why can't it be? Because you're holding on to untruths about yourself that are limiting you, that may be chastising you, that may be keeping you from being the most incredible version that you can be. Now, I always believe that we're here to improve ourselves and be better than our former selves. And so that takes work too, but it's not with that judgment and that criticism. I always believe that we have an observer. Now, it's not necessarily our higher selves, but the observer is part of us that could look at, okay, those lines that you were describing earlier and say, well, yeah, they're there. Okay, maybe I'll do some, put some cream on it or what, but
Mm.
I'm not going to say, oh, that's disgusting. How could you live with that? What?
Yep.
I'm just going to accept it, realize what it is, and be able to move on. Go
It's
ahead.
almost like a refocus because I do that. I did that. But now I don't know what happened. I turn it around and instead of saying, you're looking old, no, I flip it around and say, you look damn good for your age, man.
Yeah.
And we don't do that normally because we don't want it to be associated with this ego. This person has a big ego. But, now I embrace my age and I'm like, yeah, all right, I know other people my age, they don't look like me. Just saying. Me and my best friend, he's a year older, just gonna say, and we've known each other since elementary school. And we're the same way. And we kind of look at, people we graduated with, and it's like, wow, we actually look pretty good. But it's that finding that authentic self that allows you to do that and accept that. Doesn't mean you're not going to look in the mirror and see things and, but I feel that you minimize the time that you dwell on those things. How do you get there? What's
And
the starting point?
okay, and also that you chastise yourself. Firstly, it's about looking in, seeing what your values are, seeing what you really believe in.
Hmm.
I talk about our higher selves. That's who is really in us, who helps us get to where we need to be. So our higher selves, and when I do that work with people, it's about accessing your higher self that loves you unconditionally,
Hmm.
that sees where you were and where you are, and is helping you move forward to where you need to be and where you choose to be. So part of that is, again, letting go of the myths, letting go of the masks, and looking at what your heart's desire is too. Often the mind can take us on an incredible journey. We need our mind, but at the same time, it can be very critical based on what we're telling ourselves. And it's about, so what's your passion? What do you believe in?
Hmm.
What's important to you? What are your truths? And that's part of what makes up our core. Where do you want to be? Who do you want, who are you? And it's not again, it's not a judgment. Now that I'm not so self-critical, and it took a long time to get there, I now have jokes with myself.
Hmm.
I mean, which is like, oh, Joanne, you don't look the same way little funny things that just make me feel good, and it's playful and it's harmless, but it's about connecting with yourself in a positive way, feeling good about who you are, despite our imperfections, despite our mistakes, and be able to go on like you were talking about with your friend, hey, I look pretty good, for my age or whatever. Somebody asked me the other day, they said, you're still working? Like, because of my age, maybe I'm not supposed to be working, and I said, yeah, and I'll never stop.
Same. Same. Um, I'm old, relatively speaking.
Yeah,
And
but
I
we're
agree.
still talking, we're still thinking, we're still communicating, we're still laughing. Hello.
Joanne, I'm only just getting started. And I really mean that.
I
I
know.
am and like new beginnings, new everything. But this is all part of it, what we're talking about and what you help people with. Do you feel to identify your core, your values, your standards, that you should write them down, put it in front of you so you're staring it in the face?
I think for a lot of people, that's a great idea to be able to see that and look at that. And also, do not, exclamation point, compare yourself to anybody else's standards, to anybody, because this is you. What's good for somebody else, what they believe, what's good for the is not necessarily what you need. And living in a culture where there is so much comparison, it's really difficult to be
Mm.
able to leave that and just look at, okay, who am I? So if somebody asked you, who are you, in one word, what would you say?
Give me that question one more time.
If somebody said to you, Steve, who are you? Just tell me one word that speaks to who you are. What would that be?
Integrity.
Okay, and I feel the same way. And I would also say me, which doesn't say a lot of anything except
Who are you? Me. Yeah, there was a song by The Who, Age Alert, around 1976, and it's called "Who Are You?" Who are you? That's it. But you know what? That's a very
But that's
fundamentally
that's
great question.
right. I was going to say that's the question you need to start with because it's about, okay, who am I? I'm not what my mother told me. I'm not what my father told me. I'm not what my teachers told me. I'm not, like, but who are you? What resonates with you? What feels good about you?
Hmm.
What are your dreams? What are your aspirations? What are your values? What do you think about other than the negative stuff and the comparisons?
Wow. Um, in my journey, I pilot by this phrase. I didn't write it, maybe paraphrased it, but it says really how I feel. And it's love everyone, trust few, and do the right thing for all. The trust few part was, a little painful for me to have to say that, but that's, what I've learned. Um, and the truth is everything. That's, if I look at core values for me, that's really what it is, the truth.
And I feel the same way. You could love everyone. That doesn't mean they all have to be part of your inner circle. It doesn't.
No. Oh,
Right.
yeah, go to
Right.
Starbucks and the
But
barista's standing there and show a little love. Like, thank you for making the coffee's great today. I don't know what you did. And by the way, I love the shirt you have on. Hey, have a great day. Yeah,
see,
you're showing some love.
right. That's what I love to do. I love to go out in the world, make people smile and laugh and feel good. And that's about making the connection and making people feel that they matter, that they're valued, even in the smallest way, like you said, hey, great coffee, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and that makes that person smile and thinks, yeah, hey, I made a great coffee and he liked it. Bravo.
You never know what that will do to somebody. And quite honestly,
It does
that
a
act
lot.
of kindness could save their life. You don't know what they're going through at that moment.
Right. And oftentimes we don't. People put on this persona a lot. They
Yeah.
could be smiling, they could be hurting so much inside. You don't know that. But by showing a little grace, a little kindness, a little love, a little appreciation, it goes a long way. And
Mm.
yeah, it can be a lifesaver. So important. But you got to do the same thing for yourself.
Yes.
That's
Yes, you do.
that's part of being authentic too. Care for who you are. Don't say that everybody else is wonderful. Take care of everybody else and neglect yourself.
Many of us do that.
I
And
know.
and I believe many of us do that because of the limiting beliefs.
Yes.
They get in
Yes.
the way. Um, I am blown away that we're out of time. It feels like we just started talking about this.
Yeah.
I'm shocked. I looked up, I'm like that. That can't be. Maybe because this is so important, and it's a game changer when you're being authentic, and then everything else falls into place. Authentic relationships, they all come your way. Joanne, how does somebody connect with you to work on this journey?
Okay. So you can go to my website, docwhite.org, drjoannewhite.com, Joanne with an E, and email me, joanne@docwhite.org. I'm on social media and I love connecting with people and I love being on this podcast. And just a little, well, we're out of time, but next time I'm going to talk about Sammy the squirrel leaving little droplets.
We're going to talk about what next time?
Exactly. Sammy the squirrel. We're doing a whole little video series and actually pitching it.
Hmm.
Sammy the squirrel and Squirrel Lee are going to spread compassion and love and help others. And here we are.
I love it. I do a radio show. I've been doing, I won't even tell you how many years, and this year is a pinnacle year of that part of my career. I end every, and on this show, I play music every day, and I end every show with be kind to yourself and others.
Yes.
And it's, I'm Sammy the squirrel.
I am, well, I'm Squirrel Lee.
Squirrely. Gotcha. Dr. Joanne White, that's Joanne with an E.com. Start that journey. Find out who are you. Find out who you are. It is a game changer. It's probably one of the most important things you could do for yourself, because once you do that, you're working on all the stuff that's around you that is getting in your way. Thank you so much for today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. It's an honor and a pleasure.
I truly, I'm grateful for you. And you made me see a lot of things here with the limiting beliefs and the authenticity. And I appreciate that. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.